What we did in Hong Leong Bank was to implement a private cloud. So the data does not reside on the internet. So it's all within our data center. Our challenges were more in terms of how to create a model that is sustainable to charge back to the business, right? And what I mean by charging back to the business is when we originally set up our private cloud, right? You can't set up an infrastructure and have nobody using it. So because you need to have a business case to set up an infrastructure. So when we originally set up our private cloud, we actually had about 5 projects that wanted to use the private cloud, right? So for example, let's say the setup cost of that private cloud was 10 million, right? Then it's a matter of how do you then charge back those initial 5 projects, right? And our challenge was creating the right model that was sustainable. So when we first started out, we divided equally, right? So each project paid 2 million, right? But when we took a step back, we realized that it's quite unfair, right? Because when we look at the 5 projects, translate to different applications. So some of the applications are larger applications. So 2 million actually is quite low, right? And then some of those 5 projects are very small applications, so to them 2 million is actually quite a lot, right? So that model we realize is not so accurate, right? And to be fair to the business, because at the end of the day, the amount of money that you charge back to them, it goes also into their financial accounting and their financial books, right? So their profitability is also impacted if you charge them too much. So that's why finding the right financial model is also quite important. I think the main thing that drove us to private clouds is consolidation, and because consolidation means lesser hardware running more applications. So to me, the biggest benefit is we bring down the overall cost for everybody, right? So if you look at it in the past, before we had this shared infrastructure, everybody would buy their own infrastructure. So remember, I had the 5 projects, right? So project A would go out and buy their own hardware, project B would go and buy their own hardware, project C would buy their own hardware. So if you add all these 5 projects out, maybe everybody spends in total, I don't know, 12-15 million, right? But shared infrastructure means you spend less. So you spend 10 million, for example, right? And then you just divide it, right? But of course, like I said, when you divide it also, you need to find the right methodology to divide it. But the overall, when you total it up, you will find that the bank on whole spends less when you run things in a shared service mode. I think we are probably one of the forerunners, right? I think in general, banks in Malaysia are a little bit more conservative, right? So we recognized that there was a benefit, and we said, okay, let's give it a try, right? Okay, IT normally carries a few KPIs, right? One of the KPIs is, of course, cost. So when you run things on a private cloud and in a shared service mode, you literally bring down the amount of spend, right? So obviously that helps in my KPI, right? Now the second thing that is normally a KPI is IT generally is not a profit center. IT is a cost center. So generally IT must, as much as possible, carry 0 cost, because everything needs to be charged back. Okay, so when I buy a piece of hardware, it's not for me, it's for the business. I need to charge back that to the business, right? But when you run things on a private cloud basis, you realize that you want the ability to scale very fast, because the business may say, look, I want to grow, and in the traditional model, then what happens is you need to put out approval papers, and then you go to buy additional hardware, additional capacity, right? But when you talk about private clouds, you talk about the concept where you buy the capacity upfront. And when you buy the capacity upfront, IT literally needs to carry the cost, right? So we can never be, 0 cost, right? So because it's also unfair for us to charge everything. So we will always keep a little bit of spare capacity, so that when the business requires, then we can scale up, right? So that is another KPI that operates a little bit different when we have the cloud, right? So what are we toying around with? So obviously anything that is production in nature, we generally don't move it to a public cloud. So anything that is customer data must be held internally. But testing data or or test environment or development environments which have no customer data, perhaps could be something that we may want to consider a public cloud. Right? But we haven't gone there yet because we are a little bit more conservative, right? Possible an area. I don't think the private cloud solves that. So for example, it is very clear in China, if you run a certain banking license, the regulations say the data must be in China, right? Public cloud does not solve data sovereignty. Cloud basically is a means to virtualize and maybe give you shared service capability. So a private cloud, you still need to run the private cloud from a physical location. So for example, when I said private cloud, we run that private cloud out from Malaysia, right? Which is where our biggest data center is. Doesn't solve. So if I have a banking license in Indonesia, I don't think I can store the Indonesia data in a private cloud, right?